Hello everyone out there in YouTube. This is Hawkflame, and this is another episode of my Avatar review series, which I have not yet come up with a clever title for, but I will do so next time. And yes, I finally, first time in how many weeks, I actually have two videos coming up within a couple of days of each other. It's amazing, I know. And anyway, that's where we left off. We finished Avatar episode 1, the Boarding the Iceberg, and it sort of left on something of a cliffhanger, and this second episode is sort of the second half of a two-parter, and it really kind of feels like this, and that's not something I really realized when I first watched it, but it does really feel like it's the second half of a full episode. Like the first one wasn't really, it was set up. But see, most episodes should have kind of a self-enclosed plot for itself, in addition to setting things up for the show. And the first one sort of had a setup, no payoff. This one's all the payoff. Anyway, you have the Fire Nation, Zuko and his crew finally track down the Avatar. They come to Sokka and Katara's Water Nation tribe, and they cut the Avatar, and Aang basically gives himself up. He doesn't want to cause a whole lot of trouble for the rest of the village, and the rest of the episode is kind of a plot towards Aang's escape. Whereas Sokka and Katara come to rescue him, and sort of they're kind of at this point is where their journey begins. You know what I mean? This is at that point we're off. And overall, I think that this is a better. I want to say, this is hard to say that it's a better first episode or a better episode than the first one, but it makes the first one feel more complete. And yeah, like I said before, this is basically the second half of a two-parter. I did not know that they literally aired on the same night when it first aired, and you get a better sense of a lot of the other characters. You get a better sense of the where the whole thing is going ultimately, And I think that's very important to do here. First of all, character-wise, I think last episode was a standout was Katara, because she did show like multiple sides to herself a little bit, whereas the other characters were so far, at least at that point, a little one note. This time around, it's actually more Sokka who really steps up to the plate here, and I think I've noticed some interesting things going on with him, even just based off of this episode itself. They mentioned that he's basically the oldest guy, the oldest male left in the village, now that all the fathers and all the men have gone off to war with the Fire Nation. And that really informs his character a lot, particularly in this episode. On one hand, the absence of the other men sort of causes him to really want to step forward and sort of take charge and be a responsible person in this village, but he kind of takes it in two directions here. On one hand, he feels like he has to be the man. He has to the sort of that male role to play in the village here. The sort of the strong leader, the strong warrior, and that is both a good thing for him, but also something that kind of brings him a lot of trouble in a sense, because you see that he thinks that being manly, I think, is being very decisive, making strong decisions, and sometimes acting very impulsively, and he does things that are kind of rash. Like, for instance, his reaction to Aang basically setting off the Fire Nation traps before was just basically, get out, leave the village now. And while he kind of has a point there, I think it's kind of done for the wrong reasons. Oh, yeah, it's true that sort of once you do something like that, that's something that where you draw the ire of the Fire Nation. That's something that you really can't be ignored. But at the same time, I think he's doing it to both for the village, but also kind of it seems like she's trying to play that role, play that role of being the decisive guy, being the one who takes action. And it's also really reflected in how he approaches Zuko when Zuko arrives. And he does possibly the stupidest thing you do if you want to engage someone in a fight and just charge at them head on. In fact, he does it twice. And yeah, while he gets a lucky shot in because of his boomerang, ultimately that's that kind of shows where he's at, what kind of idea he has of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a warrior. But then at the same time, there's also the side of him that, first of all, he is a reasonable guy. Ultimately, he is a very reasonable guy. For instance, when he agreed, he just not so much agree because he didn't take he's already decided that he and Katara are going to go off to rescue Aang. I think that's the right thing to do, and so that shows a lot of maturity on his part because he's shown that he can. He can step back and can say like, okay, yeah, that wasn't too cool of him to just throw him to the wolves, to allow Aang to be thrown to the wolves like that. And so it's our responsibility to this guy's responsibility, and it's our responsibility to go and help him out here. And also another thing here is that this is something that I really noticed in this episode. He is kind of the real. There's a very interesting dynamic between Katara and Sokka here, and that Katara is very much the optimist, and she's the only one who wants to be hopeful, wants to inspire hope in others, and that's why she believes. That's why she initially really is attached to Aang and really believes in Aang. And on the other hand, Sokka is a little bit more of the realist. He's the one who kind of views things a little skeptically, not just things like his ability to fly, but also whether or not this is like, first of all, whether or not having Aang around is such a good idea to begin with, and also, but then that doesn't mean that he's not someone who willing to grow, willing to change, and willing to evolve as a character. And you already see some of that here. On top of the character stuff, I gotta say, as far as the action is concerned, this is a big step up from the first one. Obviously, because this basically contains the climax of this 2-part episode, and the whole thing with Aang's escape is really, really spectacular. First of all, I love him bending with his hands cuffed, and any kind of scenario where the hero is in some way kind of tied up or bound down or some way incapacitated, physically incapacitated, and yet he still figures out a way to kick some ass and do some really cool stuff. That is something I really enjoy. That is something I really like seeing. I think it's very inventive because it lets the animators and the writers and the creators be much more inventive in how they handle these kinds of scenes, and it really shows their imagination. So we saw some of that here, like Avatar, the Aang sneeze bending basically, and it's just, and overall the whole escape was kind of cool, and much cooler than the escape in the Last Airbender movie, where they just freaking let him go but rather they actually, this time they actually, Zuko and his uncle actually fire at him as he escapes, and it's kind of cool. They actually turn their fire. They actually use airbending to turn their fire against him and actually traps him in the ice while they get away, which is really kind of cool. So the action is really good. Visually, it's a big step up from the first episode, mainly because we get to really see the Avatar state for the first time, and that is kind of a wonder to behold. You get a sense. You get a sense that even from this first episode, this is just a tiny taste of the power that Aang is capable of. And this is, by the way, just completely untrained Aang, other than airbending. So you can only imagine what he's going to be like later on. So yeah, it builds up to a really great action. There's good character moments, especially for Sokka, but also for Aang and Katara as well. I think the Katara here we see much more. She's her much more nurturing side. She feels like she's responsible for Aang, and I think there's this great shot of Aang when he turns himself over to the Fire Nation. Yeah, that's another great element of his character. He is such a peacemaker that he will just turn himself over willingly and not cause trouble for the rest of the village. And there's this great shot of him, and his look, he gives this look to Katara that's just, it's like he shows he's trying to be strong and trying to be great and trying to hold himself together here, but he's also really scared, And this is kind of, it feels like that's kind of what inspires Katara to action in a sense. And again, also Sokka, great. Like I said before, Sokka has been great this episode. Another thing I need to mention in regard to was his sense of being a realist is that he is the one who kind of reminds Katara that you can't just, because Katara kind of wants to leave the village that doesn't really understand her, and go off of the this adventure to the Northern Water Tribe. It's not Southern Water Tribe. I forget which one now. And Sokka's the one that's like, you really gonna just up and leave your family? That's not. Are you sure that's what you really want to do? And that makes a really good point here. And I think that's, like I said, Sokka is really good at being like, even though he's a comic relief character, he's also really good at being sort of the realist, the person who's sort of the person who kind of keeps his head about himself in a sense, doesn't get too carried away with the reality of the situation. So that's really great seeing from him. Other than that, like I said, great animation, great fight scene, good character development for everyone involved, and it really, really is a good way of setting up the rest of this adventure here. And I look forward to discussing it next 58 episodes plus Korra. I guess that's what 6 more episodes altogether. So that's we got a lot of videos to go here, but I'm looking forward to doing more. And, until next time,